In Lima, firecrackers meet tear gas as a youth-led uprising shakes Peru. Generation Z has taken to the streets, armed with anime flags, defiance, and rage against corruption. Riot police clash, workers join in, and the government answers with pellets and force. But could this wave of unrest echo Nepal's protests and ignite something far bigger? Hundreds of protesters clashed with riot police in Lima as demonstrations against President Dina Boluarte and a new pension reform intensified. The rally, organised by the youth-led Generation Z movement, was joined for the first time by urban transport workers, leaving at least 9 people injured. Footage from the streets shows demonstrators facing off with riot police, who responded with tear gas and pellets as protesters hurled firecrackers. Unlike previous rallies, the transport workers brought their own demands, calling for stronger security measures following a recent surge in extortion and attacks, targeting drivers and vehicles.
Remember, we fight for our country, for revolution, for everything. Many people call us lazy just for marching. Lazy we may be, but we will continue marching and protesting.
Protesters also voiced broader opposition to recently passed laws, including the controversial pension reform and an amnesty measure granting immunity to security forces for actions committed between 1980 and 2000.
Many people call us lazy just for marching. Lazy we may be, but we will continue marching and protesting. We're tired of this being normalized, and since when did we accept people dying? So much corruption and extortion. That can't be allowed. My generation is marching because we're done being silenced, done being scared of a government we ourselves elected. I'm proud my generation is standing up. We are a courageous generation. We're not a zombie generation or snowflakes. We're a national pride showing the world what we're made of. We can't leave a stained legacy for our siblings, cousins, nephews. They deserve a peaceful country, and it's on us to make it happen.
Earlier in the day, transport workers blocked several central roads as they tried to march toward the Legislative Palace. Local media reported 9 injuries in the clashes, including a 27-year-old man hospitalised after being struck in the face by pellets, causing damage to his vision. Authorities deployed up to 5,000 officers and introduced new surveillance technologies to manage the marches. Generation Z, which accounts for about 27% of Peru's population, has emerged as the face of these protests, often using anime-inspired symbols to express dissent. These demonstrations are more than just a reaction to pension reform. Protests erupted on September 20th after a law required all Peruvians above 18 to join a pension provider. But analysts say the unrest reflects deeper dissatisfaction with Boluarte's government and Congress.
That young people especially are very aware of. There's this awareness of a ruling alliance that is ruling in their own interests, not in the interests of the general public. This has been part of the public discourse for quite some, really since Dina Boluarte, the president, came into office. And so there's a lot of unrest kind of simmering under the surface. But I do think that it matters whether these protests can be extended and sustained over time. And of course, the fear is, I think the fear in a lot of people's mind, mine included, is that the security forces and the government seem absolutely unconcerned about using violent force to suppress those protests. And so that's the fear, right?
Discontent has many layers: corruption scandals, economic insecurity, rising crime, and anger over the deaths of dozens of protesters when Boluarte assumed office in 2022 following the ousting and arrest of former President Pedro Castillo. Approval ratings tell the story. Boluarte sits at 2.5%, with Congress at 3%, according to the Institute of Peruvian Studies. The protests are also affecting Peru's economy. Hudbay Minerals temporarily shut down its mill amid the unrest. As the world's third largest copper producer and a major exporter of gold and silver, disruptions in Peru could ripple through global supply chains. But what makes these protests unique is the leadership and symbolism of the youth. Generation Z has taken to the streets in large numbers, rallying not just against economic measures, but against perceived corruption, social injustice, and a lack of accountability. One striking feature of the protests is the symbolism. A skull wearing a straw hat from the Japanese manga One Piece has appeared at demonstrations, representing freedom, resistance against corrupt rulers, and the fight against oppression.
This flag isn't just here. It's been seen in Nepal, Indonesia, everywhere our generation protests. It's from One Piece, where the main character, Luffy, travels from town to town, freeing people from tyrannical, corrupt rulers. In towns of slaves, it represents what's going on in various countries. That's what is happening now in Peru.
The use of anime symbols is not limited to Peru. Over the past months, similar imagery has been seen in protests worldwide, from Nepal to Indonesia and France, reflecting a growing Gen Z movement using cultural references and digital organizing to rally around shared ideals. Analysts warn that the protests also highlight broader challenges to democracy in Peru. Jo Marie Burt points to parallels with the 1990s under Fujimori, when the justice system was captured to consolidate authoritarian control. With elections due in 2026, there are concerns about weakened institutions and attempts to undermine courts, watchdogs, and prosecutors. The demonstrations underscore that Peru's youth are willing to challenge entrenched power structures, blending cultural symbolism with political activism. The unrest, while rooted in specific policies, reflects a wider demand for accountability, justice, and a government that listens to its citizens. As protests continue, the question remains: will Boluarte's administration respond with meaningful reform, or will discontent escalate further, reshaping the country's political landscape? For Peru, the actions of its youngest citizens may determine the trajectory of its democracy.